What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, 2024. It's Cage. We have another episode of the Hobby with Cage. Um, I was listening to a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago while I was getting ready for the holidays, and somebody said in the beginning of it, they're like, I hate solo podcasts, and I hate podcasts that tell you how many. They start with, "Oh, this is episode number 12 of the Johnny podcast. I hate it. I can't stand it." I continued to listen to the podcast, and the same individual said that he hated 11 other things. It was pretty funny trying to count them and do a little shot each time he said something that he hated. So I guess that's somebody who's not going to be consuming my solo podcast here, or that I say 109 episodes of the solo pod. No significance to that number, really. Eventually at some point in time, I'll count how many total episodes I've done. Maybe in July, we've been doing this podcast stuff for 4 years, and we hit 1,200 or something. Who the hell knows? It'll be fun. Unless I start ramping up the volume of these and start doing it every day, I won't catch Dr. Beckett. We were in a good run there doing the everyday content. I might have actually caught him, but it doesn't look like we're gonna catch him at any time soon. But anyway, you see the title, so you know where my brain is. The title on this one is "Do We Need Hobby Content?" And it's just one of those things I wanted to come on here and chat about in the new year. And there's a reason for it. It's I got a bunch of messages over the New Year break here. A lot of Happy New Year, a lot of happy people, a lot of you name it, and a lot of messages from people basically with the same kind of content. And the gist of it is I'm not going to be as active, or I'm going to be leaving the space. And I wanted to kind of go through that a little bit. There were a bunch of nice ones saying, "Hey, I'm not going to consume any content other than yours," or "I'm just going to keep listening to you and, not really, pay too much attention." I have people saying they're going to focus, more on their families, more on, doing things and being out there. And, people saying that they, the hobby itself is causing stress to them. And I've had other people say, that they were making content, but it's taking a toll, and they make too much content, and they want to, scale back and kind of balance it out. And it really had me thinking today. Had me thinking, why the messages? And when you do this stuff, it's not really scientific method here, right? It's um, hypothesis, and you do your science experiment and you come up with a conclusion. There are variables with your data, and one of the variables is possibly that podcast that I started with Andrew, Lucas, Tigers and Bronze in July of 2020, 3.5 years ago. It probably had a lot of listeners and viewers who were coming back into the space, a lot who were hit by COVID, stuck at home, working from home, maybe not working, looking for nostalgia, maybe had some stimulus money. Maybe they were people who were looking at the hobby to flip, maybe as a way to make money, maybe as a side hustle. And a lot of those, things are no longer there. So maybe it's not, what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, in my messages from people. Maybe it's not an indictment of the space overall. Maybe it's not something that is indicative of the entire space. Maybe it's something that's limited. Maybe the variable here is that the people who are listening, to me, came in, during this crazy boom cycle, and now they have, less time for the hobby. They're able to do more things. You're able to go out, go on vacation, go out and do things with your family. Otherwise, we're unable to do that. Maybe people are working, maybe people are back to the office rather than, the hybrid / work from home type of stuff that people were doing. There's a myriad of reasons and variables, as to why maybe I'm seeing more of that. I tend to think that might be an answer for some, but I think really what I'm seeing is something that is plaguing the overall space. because I do talk to people who came in this year. I mean, I have listeners, and you guys are listening to this, watching this now, and know who you are. And I think a lot of it is fatigue. I think a lot of it is, just, it was a fun ride up. The ride down, I made this comparison to somebody who sent me some interesting messages. I said, listen, maybe we just hop on a phone call. Maybe I'll cheer you up a little bit. I compared the hobby ride in the last 4 or 5 years to a roller coaster, but it's one that you never rode before. It's one that you didn't get a look at ahead of time. It's sort of Space Mountain in the dark, but if you first time riding, you rode it up. You didn't know when that up was going to stop and come down until it happened. Where you were riding it up. And when it's riding up, you don't care when you're in the dark. You don't care. You're enjoying that ride because your card values are going up. You're able to kind of trade in and out of cards, buy things, sell them for more, and that ride up is great. So you're not, during that uphill, that upswing, you're not sitting there wondering, when is it going to go down? When is it going to go down? When is it going to go down? You're just riding it up and enjoying it. Well, we started to come down. And because it's dark and you've never ridden it before, you don't know when or if going down stops. And you're just in the dark, continuing to go down, hoping every day, every week, you name it, that the downtrend of this roller coaster stops and maybe you go back up or maybe it flattens out. But when you're in the dark, you don't know when that's going to happen. I beat the shit out of that analogy. I apologize for taking it so long because I'm sure you guys got it after 2 seconds, but I think it really does apply. And I think a lot of people are just basically pushing the button and saying, stop the ride. I don't want to be in the dark anymore. I want to move out of here. I want to be done. And I think if you go through your science experiment on this, there are a bunch of different reasons why. The space has changed. The way people buy cards has changed. The players have changed. And I look around Instagram and there is it's an interesting thing to watch, the amount of people who are there and what they're doing. I do this episode here without a single dollar being paid to me by anyone. I don't have a sponsor. I don't have anything like that. So, don't read into it. I'm going to say this person's doing good, this person's doing bad. I'll make comments, you name it. I am currently an unsponsored, unpaid hobby participant who gets to talk, who hopefully folks who are able to listen to this. But I see the space is full of specific segments, specific place. There are businesses, right? There are big businesses in the hobby. Your Heritage, it's not a hobby specific company, but they're big in the hobby. The auction houses, right? Your Goldens and your Heritage and your PWCC as part of Fanatics. Your product making businesses. Your Fanatics, which is obviously huge and everywhere. Topps and Panini and those companies, and then you also have the grading companies, and their presence is out there also. And these guys, every one of those are making money. Right, so their content is based on, the business. It's based on, look at how many cards we've graded, look at the new cards we've graded, look at all we've done this year, look at how much we're doing, look at the specials we have. That's fine. I mean, that's, like any other business, any other space, that's the kind of content you're going to have. Auctions. Here's what we have. Here's what we took to market. Here's the record sales we got. You name it. Very interesting. You name it, the whole deal. There's your auction houses. There's your card manufacturers. Look at this card we're making. Look at this new product that's coming. Look at this new soccer release that we're coming out with. Look at these. Look at this. Look at that. All easy. All great. Hasn't really changed. That's the kind of stuff that's being done, that was done before, is done now. The other area is content creation, podcasts, you name it. And I mean, look, in the last, put me in there, right? I mean, our podcast, Lucas, Tigers and Bronze, not going daily like we were. I'm trying to keep the spirit of it alive here, but Our friends from Card Talk just stopped. Who knows what's going to happen to sports card nonsense? One of the big ones. Who knows if their contracts get renewed? I have no idea. I haven't talked to those guys. Maybe I'll reach out and say hi. I like that show. Not many podcasts, except for the ones that were here before. Your Dr. James Beckett, your Sports Card Radio. They were here for a while, right? And what's funny is the content that is out there, the content that's there that is, I don't want to say thriving. I've talked about this a bunch of times. I'm not going to paint with such a broad stroke, but they do a very good job. It's, educational and or expose type of content. Your Dan the Card Man, your AIH. I listened to AIH today. It was all about macroeconomics, and I loved it. I know a lot of people in the hobby probably hate it, but it gets you thinking about how the overall economy will impact your collecting habits, your investment strategies, what you're going to do, if this breaks this way, and I like that kind of stuff. But I don't know there are a lot of people in the hobby who do. But what they do a good job at is exposing some of the bad actors. And man, did we have a bunch of bad actors? Right? So I mean, do we need hobby content? The interesting part about it is the rest is there are some big accounts. There are the businesses that are not that top tier business that we're talking about. It's your Santiago and your Blaze and your Blaze Sports and your these guys. Santiago put a video out yesterday, basically. People don't get it. People don't understand what it takes to to buy in this space. People don't understand. They think it's so easy to run a business. It's a great video, educational with a little bit of an attitude to it. And real eye-opening, and it does kind of educate the consumer who otherwise may not be able to peel that layer off. And that was a well-watched video. A lot of people watching it. Is that what you want on IG? So let's break it down, right? You're coming into Instagram, you're coming onto YouTube, you're coming into the hobby, you're coming into the space, and you want to learn about it. All right, well, you got businesses yelling about how the masses don't understand it. You have content being created, exposing the frauds and the problems in the space. And then you have on the other end, these big businesses, basically pumping what's been here the entire time. Maybe pumping is not the right word, but cards that are for sale, cards that are up in auction, cards that are, you name it, the whole deal. And then you have where I think we've all known we're going. It's breakers. I think Hobby IG is basically all breakers. And this, by the way, tying it back to the messages that I'm getting, going into my DMs, I guess maybe the people who were attracted to the content that I do are not the breaking type, right? And they're just turned off by it. I'm not going to break. I'm not going to open. I'm not going to be buying stuff. I'm not going to spend this kind of money and get a 10% return or a 20% return. I'm not going to do it. And if that's going to be all of the content that's out there on Instagram, I'm just going to leave the space. Fair. Completely fair. I can't even come up with an argument not to. And what's funny about it is the group that I've left out so far are the people who would probably call themselves collectors. Collectors. Now, I've talked about collectors versus investors a bunch of times. And what's funny is I always kind of caveat and say, I know this isn't for you. You guys are the collectors. You're the ones who just want your cards. And you love it when prices go down, because when prices go down, you get to buy more of the cards you want. As a matter of fact, you want anybody to know. You want to be able to, like, in darkness, collect your cards and hoard them, because that makes you a collector. Well, do we need collector content? Do we need collector content at all? If real collectors want to just have their cards, isn't it bad when attention is, light is shined on the cards that you want to buy? Isn't that going to increase the cost on them? Isn't it going to bring attention to those cards that you want? And shouldn't you want less content about those cards? I don't know. I don't, because we got a lot of collectors out there making content talking about, totally certified is going to be the next PMGs. Because when it comes down to it, I don't care about the three of you who are going to argue with me about this in the YouTube comments. Even the collectors are thrilled about that roller coaster ride up, because their cards went up in value and allowed them to flip and trade and buy more stuff. So there's a lot of different type of hobby content out there, but I guess when it comes to the conclusion part of my episode, my science experiment, it's, do we need it? Because I tend to think that the vast majority of the hobby does just fine without it. A statement against my own interest, I guess. I think the auction houses are going to sell to collectors, with a few exceptions. I think the companies are going to sell their stuff, you name it. I think here's where the rubber hits the road. And I think it's why I'm hearing what I'm hearing from the people who listen and pay attention to my content and they're leaving. It's because the content that's everywhere and pervasive, the content that is needed, is the breaking content. It's the breaking content. I mean, this Fortnite, this is crazy. You hear this kid? He's just on there with 4 other kids, and they're playing games, and they're shooting this one and going after this one. I don't even know what the heck's going on. I never played games in my life, but there you go. That's what you're hearing in the background. Anyway, I think it's the kind of content that's needed. If we're going into this next little phase of the space, and it is printing, opening, selling. Your card manufacturer comes out with a product, let's call it Bowman Draft Chrome, and they got a gimmick in there, and the gimmick is Tom Brady signing baseball autographs and having a baseball card. The breakers are making content about it like crazy, showing the card, showing Tom Brady. The company is out there making content, putting Tom Brady selling used cars, making videos, you name it. It's part of the machine. You got these guys chasing it. Then the breakers are showing people hitting these things. And then the auction houses, some of them, are out there making videos of people flying with the cards to auction them off with that auction house. After the grading companies put out content saying anybody who hits one of these, get it graded with us, a la the One Ring card. Grade it with us. It'll be free. Grade it with us. We'll put it in a slab. Grade it with us. Blah, 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 blah. That's, I think, 80% of what we're seeing now. And I think it's turning a lot of people off. Let me know what you think. Is that the kind of stuff you see on IG? Is that the kind of stuff you want to see? Should I just disappear? Because you don't need my content. You don't need this at all. Or am I wrong? Do I have it completely wrong? I'll listen to you collector guys too. I mean, maybe you like some of the collector content that's out there. I think it's a nice counterbalance. But, if we're calling a spade, the people I talk to who are making content, there's very few out there who are as enamored by it as they were when there was so much to talk about, when there was all this new blood and excitement coming in. And yeah, when that roller coaster was going up, a little less now when I could come on here every day and tell you about what breakers are doing. I could come on here every day and tell you about what gimmick and what product it is. But honestly, I don't know how many people really want to listen to that. I don't think that audience is a content consuming audience. I think that's a gambling audience. They want to hear about the new cards that are coming out. This way they can just put another coin in a slot machine. Anyway, it's just what I'm thinking today going into 2024. I'll have other content, guys. I'm not going anywhere, whether you need me or not. I love coming on here. It's a nice little release for me to kind of, say my piece. And I'm curious whether or not, look, I know you're already thinking this because my DMs are full of people telling me this, but I'm curious whether or not anybody's in the same sort of space, same sort of headspace. We see people pivot to gambling content. We see people, straight on breaking. It's a fun little thing. And I don't know what changes it. Honestly, I don't. I'd like to say that maybe there's a pocket where, there's some fun to collect. I saw some new soccer releases coming out and, that community is, hey, they're really there. They love the cards and they rally around the new release and they're excited about a high-end release coming out. And even that, I don't think that moves the needle. You look at all of the, the most liked content that's out there. It's all, auction houses, breakers, and, folks making fools of themselves. So I guess I make a fool of myself too, just in my own way. I love you guys. I'll be back maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday with another one. And I appreciate you giving this a listen. A little bit of different content today, but if nothing else, I'm gonna empty this brain on you guys and let you know what I'm thinking. Talk to you guys soon. And I guess to end with this, if you're thinking the same thing, send me a DM. Let's chat. I know for a fact that there are some people who thought they were leaving the hobby last week that are not now, because we chatted. We talked about some redeeming qualities of the hobby. Maybe not in the content space, but there's plenty of other cool stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Talk to you guys soon.